What is up, you muffin munching muggles? Welcome to Fiction and Reality, where we help you, yes, you become the most devilishly gifted human that you know you are and that you knew you always could be. Are you the strongest because you're the strongest, or are you Satoru Gojo because you're Satoru Gojo? Is that how he said it?
君は五条悟だから最強なのか、最強だから五条悟なのか。
Today we will be talking about what constitutes being the strongest.
I, Madra, declare that you are the strongest of them all!
Many of us wonder how to tackle the idea of creating an extremely powerful character, since, as you all know, with great power comes great responsibility.
I missed the part where that's my problem.
And that, of course, is not just reserved to the character, but it falls upon the shoulders of the writer themselves to give great care towards fleshing out the story of an overpowered character. And today we'll uncover what the responsibility entails and how to thoroughly unravel what's at the very core of a great, well-rounded, overpowered character. And also how to avoid mistakes and cliches that may leave your audience and fandoms in mass uproar. Now, what is an OP character? Or for the uncultured swine, an overpowered character? I define it as a character who serves as some entity which other players or personalities within the story may rally around, either with resentment or praise to bolster strength, or in order to earn a one-up on their obstacle and secure the ideals they value most. But what makes this character overpowered, per se, is a swift nature in which they can effect drastic change with regard to the plot, simply due to the fact that they hold exponentially more power when compared to others in their universe. Now, we should, of course, address an obvious and core element that must be fine-tuned when sculpting any overpowered character. What is that element, you ask? The answer is power. Generally speaking, your character needs to have an overbearing sense of power relative to what's considered the norm within the world that you're creating. Now, this is extremely critical, as the way that their power element presents decides how others will react when faced with its presence, and if they'll cower with fear, be charged with the obligation to overthrow the forces that be, or maybe even become a worthy ally. For the sake of what we're talking about, funneling into the fantastical world of fiction, we'll be addressing power as if it's some magical entity or element. Let's address some mistakes to avoid. Alright. We have to talk about Satoru Gojo. Yes, the white-haired stepchild that everyone once adored, and now, well, let's just say his character arc is half as good as it once was. No spoilers here. Gojo wins. Gojo is the sole protagonist in JJK. Listen, Yuji is not the protagonist. That's Gege's fault, not mine. He's one of the main protagonists, rated as a special grade sorcerer and born with the ability of Limitless, which essentially allows him to manipulate cursed energy at an atomic level and create techniques such as Blue, where he essentially pulls matter toward him, and Reversal Red, which is the inversion of Blue, allowing him to bend and manipulate gravity to his every will. He also inherits this ability of Infinity, which allows him to shroud himself with infinite cloaks of finite space and decide what can and can't touch him. Now, I know. All this talk about colors is confusing. Now, as you may remember, I said that Gojo was born with these powers, meaning they were inherited. That's not to say that he didn't have to continue to hone and sharpen those skills, but becoming the strongest was for him a shorter trail to traverse than others. Generally speaking, while Gojo's abilities were unique in the system of Jujutsu, and in most cases flashy to watch on the big screen, and undoubtedly had his peers hanging him high on the mantle of reliability, Gojo was written in a manner that shuttled the creator into a corner. There was one huge mistake in dealing with power that I believe the creator made, and that was essentially defining the character by his power, and unfortunately relying on that power to carry Gojo's character arc and character development. Now, I'll attempt to add some sense of balance here, alright? I'm not defending this, and I'm not defending this character, but I'll be fair and admit there was a tiny window of character development displayed in the hidden inventory arc, where the audience was introduced to another half of the overconfident and cocky Gojo, where he was met for the first time in his life with a force stronger than him, who weaponized his overconfidence against him. Even with this, there was much left to be desired, as the only thing that shifted in Gojo's perception of strength was his will to become even stronger, so that he would never lose anything or be humbled by his dad Toji ever again. Yet time and time again, with various fights in the future, namely with the volcano head guy, Jogo, we still see examples of him underestimating his opponents. Here we see the issue of constructing the entire framework of an overpowered character around power and power alone. The consequences that strength becomes the scale of judgment of said character and the meter in which they view others. It completely devours and consumes space for character development. Dynamic shifts in flow and perception, and unfortunately for the reader, leaves much to be desired. So, what more are we supposed to take from this, other than the fact that Gojo has a blistering hatred towards his enemies, and the traditional structure of Jujutsu High where the executive's words are law? But what's even more dire is that it leaves the supporting character's connection to Gojo dwindling and fizzling into thin air, as they sense nothing more but a strong shoulder to look to when everything is going to hell in high water. Let's take an attempt to look at power from a different point of view. It's more than just some giant club you wave around whacking any and everything you see in sight. What opportunities and windows can it open for character development, and what decisions are made that may possibly slam those windows shut? The importance of giving an overpowered character obstacles or stumping the brakes on their strength cannot be stressed enough. And to highlight a prime character who both flings open and closes windows of character development due to a lack of obstacles, I'll call into question the ghost of the Uchiha, Madara Uchiha. With Madara, you see how, depending on the method you put into play for displaying the pinnacle of power, it can progressively build your character arc octave by octave by octave, but then it can capsize and plummet down and leave the character tumbling and fumbling on their head. Unlike Gojo, the caricature of Madara has without question been chiseled at every nook and crevice, contoured with exquisite detail by the creator, in order to sculpt a concrete course of character development that the audience can engage with and identify with. I want a character that can shoot lasers out there and summon meteors from the sky. Okay, who's gonna catch the meteors? All of you are. As you can see, power scaling in the final arc of Naruto was not working to Kishimoto's advantage. But that's not to say the build up to Madara's grand entrance was all for naught, since he had his somewhat concrete character arc up to that final point. He was brought up in a land that was plagued with war between his clan, the Uchiha, and the Senju clan. Throughout countless bouts of war and clashes, Madara, alongside his childhood friend Hashirama, who was a part of the Senju clan, they both swore together to one day bring upon an era of peace upon both their clans in the form of a hidden leaf village. And though their promise was eventually realized, having lost his brothers to the countless number of wars with the Senju, including one due to the hands of Tobirama Senju, who was Hashirama's brother, Madara failed to shake the sense of cowardice and betrayal, feeling as if he owed his brothers and clan a path to true peace, calling him to defect from the Leaf Village and ultimately leading him to clash once more with his childhood friend Hashirama, a clash that ended in him losing his life, or so they thought. Using a technique from the Uchiha, he revived himself, hiding underground until he could awaken his Rinnegan, the final step of his plan needed for him to realize his dream of placing the world in an infinite dream, a dazed stupor that discarded reality for a false sense of security. Now here's the issue I want to get at. In the final arc, having manipulated a shinobi into aiding him, Madara essentially is able to reanimate himself into a more mobile body using the corpse of a dead ninja, which allows him to box with the entire Shinobi Alliance, lands of lightning, water, earth, wind, and fire, and the lone samurai nation, the land of iron. Basically, every single village in Naruto is catching hooks from the village hidden in the hands. Even the top, strongest village leaders, all 5 Kage, from their respective lands who are supposed to be the top tier of the top tier, are not enough to hold that boy down, even when coming at him all at once. But wait, there's more. Madara is able to essentially bring his old body back from the dead using a technique called Rinne Rebirth. Yep, I'm just gonna come back to life now. And to make matters even worse, right? After extracting the chakra of all the tailed beasts and becoming the vessel of the 10 tails, he acquired a newfound power. Yes, people, another Zenkai boost. And so here the issue arises yet again. If the top 5 strongest ninjas in all the village can't even bring him to his knees, if Naruto and Sasuke, undoubtedly the 2 strongest ninjas fighting for the alliance, even with their strongest forms, couldn't defeat this newly acquired power, then where does that leave Madara? Well, just like Gojo, my friend, written into a corner. I believe Kishimoto, the creator himself, admitted that Madara was too overbearing and overpowered, but instead of finishing out his character arc, he grabs a fistful of plot from a hole where the sun doesn't shine and has him unwillingly transition into a cisgendered woman to veer the plot in an entirely different direction. And so all the character development, the arc that defined the man who was Madara Uchiha, fell flat on its face. So what lesson do we take from this? As you can see, it's within a writer's capacity to comb the development of a character to the nth degree, even to the point of mastery, and then send the entire arc tumbling toward the earth in freefall and smashing to bits. When writing powerful, overbearing characters, you must give them obstacles and reduce their capacity to brute force their ideals into reality. This means you'll need an equal and opposite force, or at least some dynamic shift in plot, circumstance, setting, or plans that veers them off from their course. This creates more opportunities for said character to actively engage with other players in the environment. And instead of simply measuring the world through the lens of strength and strength alone, gauge it through values, ideals, and beliefs. Moreover, it creates more immersion and gravitas for the audience, as they are now called to ask, how will his plans change? How will others adapt? Is the character losing the upper hand? Will others continue to stand with them, given their stumped progression? A lot of room for reevaluation is allotted here. Now we'll run you through the proper course of what an overpowered character's arc should have some semblance of. Well, it comes without question that you should balance the scales of power. As we just saw, creating characters that can hurl meteors at a 1,000,000-fold army and shell out mass particles of energy that can shred the entire landscape, if not checked in balance, has the potential to sow rifts into character development. So how about we talk about some extremely strong characters who've encountered barriers that have tapered off and balanced their scales of power within the universe. Kratos. Hey, sometimes you just gotta snap a few necks, gouge out a few eyes, and heave a couple of haymakers just to make sure the gods know who their real daddy is. In the God of War series, Kratos, a vicious Spartan warrior, kills his wife and daughter under the influence of a curse placed on him by the god Ares. This loss haunts him throughout the series and serves as a central source of his rage and ignites his crusade for vengeance against the gods of Olympus. And boy, did he wreak havoc against all the gods. Now, some may say that killing every single god in Olympus and throwing the entire pantheon into mass chaos through a revenge tour makes him a little OP. Well, I would too. My perspective of Kratos being nothing more of a bloodthirsty warmonger might not have changed if not for the latest installments of God of War, which seeks to unravel a deeper side of the Spartan, leaving Greece and winding up in Midgard, a pantheon that's governed by the Norse gods, like Odin and Thor. Having viewed his past actions with shame, he takes up the initiative to mature and grow past his self-destructive tendencies, choosing to live as a man under the Norse pantheon. He even finds love with a woman named Faye, who unfortunately dies, but kickstarts the journey between Kratos and Atreus, father and son, to fulfill her wishes of spreading her ashes from the highest peak in the 9 realms. We see him take up the mantle of a father in an attempt to guide his own son away from the bloodthirsty rage that once consumed him, beating into his son's head that being a god does not give them free reign over the lives of others and the will to do whatever they want whenever they want to. In God of War Ragnarok, we begin to see Kratos restraining the growling beast within his soul, even stopping himself from killing on many occasions where he would have just cracked their neck before.
Oh, no. You are going to spare me out of pity!
Let it go, you may live.
Is this about the little runt? Oh, now I am definitely going to gut him.
This is your final warning.
His conflict and obstacles become less centered around who can overpower him and halt his revenge assaults, and more of an internal conflict with himself and finding what he stands for as a god, even sequestering the most primordial thoughts to destroy, rampage, and rage. Well, rage, maybe not that last part. The chalice of rage floweth over, not solely out of selfishness and revenge for him, but out of duty of respecting his power as a god and role as a father, rather than a hunger for power and power alone, to seek revenge. And so we begin to see how just a kid and a shift in temperament towards finding a path to peace served as two obstacles that transpose his brute chain and sickle-wielding, self-destructing tendencies, all while weaving in opportunities to further develop his character. And such is the importance of any obstacle integrated into a story. I want to talk about what it really means to be the strongest. Pushing onward, the journey that the strongest embarks on and how they perceive their own power is so critical in crafting a well-rounded character. We'll explore it by taking a look at one of my favorite anime characters, All Might. Now, who wouldn't want to catch a friendly fade with All Might and get their daily dose of 100% plus ultra? When we first see All Might, we think of him as simply just that, All Might, a symbol of hope, a symbol of strength, a hero, and a symbol of peace who everyone looks towards to keep the malignant villains at bay. Yet even within the first episode of My Hero, while his strength is first captured on display when saving the protagonist Deku, he is shown to have his own tribulations with regard to maintaining his brawn form due to permanently sustained damage from a prior battle with the main antagonist, My Hero, All for One. And just that small time frame, while still serving as the strongest hero and a symbol of peace, we are shown that All Might will not simply be the cliche of brawn and muscles winning favor with the public and constituents due to pure strength alone. When a quirkless and powerless Deku asks if he can become a hero despite being powerless, we see All Might acting as a true voice of rationale and reason.
Is it possible to become a hero even if I don't have a quirk?
Without a quirk? Pro heroes are always having to risk their lives. Some villains just can't be beaten without powers. So no, I honestly don't think you can become a hero without a quirk.
Later into the episode, we then see his resolve to sacrifice burst onto display when one of Deku's friends gets captured. It's here witnessing Midoriya's bravery where he reminds us of what cultivates a hero. But what's even more than that, before we are made aware of the finite battle he's fighting with All for One, the antagonist of the franchise, and the trauma of losing his mentor, pay attention to this. He makes us, the audience, aware of what having power, of what being a hero means to him.
You told me you didn't have a power, so when I saw this timid, quirkless boy try to save a life, it inspired me to act too. There are stories about every hero, how they became great. Most have one thing in common. Their bodies moved before they had a chance to think, almost on their own.
And that's a blue chip that anyone who's undertaking this journey should slip into their pocket. Whether or not you overtly state it, make your readers or audience aware in some form or fashion of what having power means to your overpowered or simply just strong character. It forks a path of perspective and spindles out. It weaves and spindles out the web of ethics and morals on which they base their actions upon, and by consequence, allows the other characters to feed off the energy by reacting in kind. Later, after he passes on One for All to Deku, we see All Might training Midoriya Deku to carry on the baton of One for All and help him on his path to becoming the greatest hero. Some may even argue that he served in a fatherly sort of role for the young and upcoming UA student who truly wanted nothing more but to protect Japan from the villain society. We see the will to sacrifice as we find out that for All Might to transfer the power of One for All, it means that he himself will lose it and cease to be the symbol of peace and will no longer have that power. And that alone threads into other walks of character development as he is forced to grapple with how else he could best make himself useful to the students of UA, and Deku as a mentor, teacher, and guide, and best prepare him for his inevitable battle with All for One. Now, I've touched upon this when talking about previous characters, but here I just wanted to emphasize the importance of your overwhelming, overpowerful character having a narrative goal. And this means that they know why they are taking the actions they're taking. And it simply isn't just to be the strongest. In Ghost of Tsushima, you play as Jin Sakai, a formidable samurai serving on the island of Tsushima, who is met with fears of conquest upon the Mongol Empire's invasion. Man, I wish I was Jin Sakai. What lady doesn't love a guy who could swing their giant sword around with unbridled gusto? Unlike his uncle and the other samurai who hold honor to the highest of standards, Jin recognizes that the entire island of Tsushima will be defeated and victory will be nigh impossible should they face the Mongols square on. So prioritizing the love of his island and family above all, even without the blessing from his uncle who is repulsed by Jin's dishonorable way of fighting, Jin decides to displace the old samurai traditions of combat and seek a stealthy, more streamlined approach to defeating the Mongol Empire. Now, some of you may ask, is Jin Sakai really that overpowered?
Invaders! Look at your general! Run! This will be your fate!
I would say yes. But again, the main point I want to make here is that your overpowering character should know what they are pursuing, and you should have a narrative goal in mind. It's what's at the core of what keeps your audience or readers enveloped and invested in that character's journey in chasing that golden carrot. What's more is that the failure of a purpose may leave you, the writer, grasping for straws and enacting the pursuit of power as your only means for escaping the corner that you've written yourself into. So give them a purpose. All right, go forth. Go forth and create characters that can lay waste to a planet with just a snap of their finger. Turn a village into a mosh pit of debris with a teeny weeny push of their hands. Go forth and create an ever-evolving and dynamic soul that'll have everyone begging to know more about their journey. I will leave a link to my socials in the description below. And if you took something from this video, anything, I want you to take a moment to hit that subscribe button below and like the video. It pushes these videos out so that others can take these key tokens of knowledge that you've gained. So do your fellow comrades a favor. And with that, remember, if ever you're lost in a forestry of words, strip your mind from fantasy and look to the window of the world, and there your mind will run free.